Have you ever felt your entire world crack open in a single suffocating moment, like the ground swallowing you whole under a merciless sun? That's how it hit me that day. 8 months pregnant, standing alone in a dusty gas station lot in rural Georgia, watching my husband's SUV speed away with his mocking laughter echoing in the humid air. My name is Zoe Garcia, a 30-year-old elementary school teacher from Savannah, Georgia, who thought she knew what love was until betrayal ripped it apart. I was married to Daniel Caldwell, a marketing director from Old Money, whose family, his mother Jennifer and sister Barbara, had always looked down on my simple life, but I'd trusted him to bridge that divide. Now, as their taillights vanished, the core tension of our mismatched worlds exploded. Their elitism versus my grit, foreshadowing a storm of schemes that would test everything I held dear. The heat wrapped around me like a vice, sweat soaking my faded sundress, my swollen belly heavy with our daughter kicking insistently, pulling me into the present with vivid urgency, the scent of gasoline mixing with my rising panic, the distant hum of cicadas underscoring the isolation that hinted at darker manipulations ahead. I was 8 months pregnant, one hand cradling my swollen belly when my husband Daniel's mocking voice cut through the humid air. "Take a nice walk, Zoe." His mother Jennifer and sister Barbara cackled from the back of their sleek black SUV as it peeled out of the dusty lot, headed for a luxury resort on Tybee Island. I stood frozen, watching their taillights vanish, my heart pounding as the reality sank in. My husband of 3 years had just abandoned me, pregnant and alone with nothing but the faded sundress clinging to my sweat-soaked skin. The heat was suffocating, the kind of Georgia summer haze that makes your lungs feel heavy. I'd only stepped into the gas station to use the restroom. My bladder wasn't exactly cooperative in my 3rd trimester. Daniel had insisted on this family vacation with his mother and sister, claiming it'd be our last getaway before our daughter arrived. I should have seen the signs. The way he'd made me sit in the back seat so Jennifer could ride up front. Their whispered conversations, Barbara's smirks every time I struggled to waddle out of the car. But I trusted him. I always had, ever since we met at a charity gala in Savannah 3 years ago, when his warm smile and easy charm made me believe he was different from his snooty family. I grew up in a modest Savannah neighborhood, raised by my single mom, who worked double shifts to keep us afloat. Teaching kids became my way of giving back, pouring love into every crayon drawing and storytime session. Daniel, a marketing director at Coastal Trust Insurance, came from old Savannah money. His family practically royalty in the city's elite circles. His mother, Jennifer, ran the Caldwell Community Fund, throwing lavish charity events that barely hid her disdain for my simple life. Barbara, his influencer sister, lived for likes and never missed a chance to remind me I didn't belong. Still, Daniel had defended me, at least in the beginning. When I got pregnant, though, something shifted. His patience turned to irritation, his warmth to cold indifference, like I'd become a burden. Now, standing alone in that gas station lot, my hands trembled as I felt my baby girl kick, a reminder she was still with me. The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined. But as the sun burned my shoulders, a quiet resolve started to build. This wasn't just about me anymore. My daughter deserved better, and I'd make sure she got it, no matter what it took. The gas station's flickering neon sign felt like the only beacon in that desolate stretch of rural Georgia. My legs wobbled as I stumbled toward the small convenience store, the heat pressing down like a weight on my chest. Inside, the air conditioning hit me like a lifeline, and I nearly collapsed into a plastic chair by the counter. Hank Mitchell, the grizzled owner with kind eyes and a mechanic's calloused hands, was already moving toward me. "You all right, darling?" he asked, his voice thick with concern. His wife, Clara, a former nurse with silver hair and a non-nonsense demeanor, appeared from the back, her face hardening as I choked out what had happened. "They just drove off," I whispered, my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter's gentle kicks. "My husband, his family, they left me here." Hank's jaw tightened, and Clara muttered something about no good cowards as she handed me a cold bottle of water and a pack of crackers. "We saw the whole thing," Hank said, pointing to a security camera blinking above the counter. "Got it all on tape, clear as day. What they did ain't right." Clara's eyes blazed. I'm calling Channel 9. People need to know what kind of folks would abandon a pregnant woman in this heat. I should have felt humiliated, but instead, a strange calm settled over me. Let the world see Daniel's true colors, I thought. Let them see the Caldwells for who they are. Hank and Clara weren't just strangers. They were like the parents I wished I'd had growing up, the kind who stepped up when things got tough. They'd lost a child years ago, Clara later told me, and that pain drove them to treat every lost soul who wandered into their gas station like family. As I sipped the water, my hands stopped shaking, but my mind raced. My phone, my purse, my hospital bag, everything was in Daniel's SUV, speeding toward Tybee Island. Clara sat beside me, her warm hand on mine. "You haven't eaten since breakfast, have you?" she asked, reading my pale face like a book. I shook my head, the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper. This trip was supposed to be a celebration, a final moment of joy before motherhood. Instead, it was a setup, a cruel joke orchestrated by the family I'd tried so hard to please. But in that moment, as Hank checked his phone and mentioned Rachel Coleman from Channel 9 was on her way, "She's tough, she'll make sure this story gets out," I felt a spark of something new. Not just survival, but a fierce protectiveness for the life inside me. I nibbled on a cracker, feeling my baby shift, and realized this wasn't just about enduring the moment. It was about fighting for my daughter's future, and I wasn't alone anymore. The Caldwells thought they'd broken me, but they just lit a fire I didn't know I had. As I waited for the news crew, my thoughts drifted to the small ways I'd ignored the red flags, like Daniel's increasingly distant touches, or Jennifer's pointed comments about my quaint career. Little did I know, those were just the surface of a deeper abyss, one that would soon pull their whole facade down with me. As I sat in Hank and Clara's small office, the hum of the gas station's air conditioner barely dulled the storm raging inside me. My hands still shook, but the cold water and crackers steadied me enough to face what came next. Hank fiddled with a dusty computer, pulling up the security footage from the lot. There it was, clear as day, me waddling out of the restroom, one hand on my belly, then Daniel's SUV peeling out, his mocking, "Take a nice walk, Zoe," caught by the camera's audio. Jennifer's cackle and Barbara's smirk burned into my memory as the footage looped. I felt my daughter kick, grounding me. But the betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. Clara's voice snapped me back. "Rachel Coleman's pulling in," she said, pointing to a Channel 9 news van crunching gravel outside. "She'll make sure this gets seen." My chest tightened, not from fear, but from a flicker of defiance. Let the world see the Caldwells for who they were. Hank and Clara weren't just strangers, they were anchors in this chaos. Clara, with her nurse's instincts, kept checking my pulse, her silver hair catching the fluorescent light as she muttered about the Caldwells' cowardice. Hank, his calloused hands gentle, showed me the footage again, pointing out details like Daniel's deliberate glance at the camera. "They knew we'd see it," he said, his voice gruff. "Arrogant fools." Their kindness reminded me of my mom, who'd worked herself raw to give me a life where I could stand tall. I'd poured that strength into teaching, shaping kids' futures with love, but I'd let Daniel's charm blind me to his family's cruelty. Now with Ava's kicks urging me on, I felt that strength returning. Rachel Coleman strode in, her sharp eyes taking in my sweat-soaked sundress and swollen belly. "Zoe, tell me everything," she said, her camera crew setting up. I choked out the story, the vacation Daniel insisted on, the backseat relegation, the whispers I'd ignored. Rachel's jaw tightened as she watched the footage. "This isn't just abandonment," she said. "It's reckless endangerment. We're airing this tonight." I nodded, my resolve hardening. My phone, purse, and hospital bag were still in that SUV, but I wasn't helpless. The Caldwells thought they'd left me to crumble, but they'd handed me a megaphone. As Rachel's crew filmed, my mind drifted to the early days with Daniel. 3 years ago, at a Savannah charity gala, his warm smile had felt like a lifeline. I was 27, a teacher pouring my heart into my second graders, still carrying the grit of a childhood scraping by with my mom. Daniel, in his tailored suit, talked about love over status, making me believe he saw me. We married fast, despite Jennifer's icy, teaching his quaint remarks, and Barbara's influencer jabs about my lack of polish. Daniel had defended me then, but cracks appeared. His irritation when I got pregnant, his silence when Barbara, accidentally spilled wine on my dress at a family dinner. I'd ignored the signs, clinging to hope, but this gas station stunt was no accident. Rachel's voice pulled me back. "Zoe, you okay to go on record?" I nodded, feeling Ava's kicks like a call to action. "I want people to know what they did," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Not for me, but for my daughter." As the camera rolled, I described the heat, the betrayal, the way Daniel's family laughed as they left me stranded. Clara squeezed my hand, her eyes fierce. "You're stronger than they know," she whispered. Hank added, "We've got your back, darling." Their support felt like family, the kind I'd longed for growing up. The news van's lights flashed outside, and I realized this was bigger than me. The Caldwells' world of wealth and status was about to crack under the weight of their own cruelty. My thoughts flickered to Jennifer's charity galas, her family values speeches that now rang hollow. Barbara's smug Instagram posts, Daniel's cold indifference. They'd underestimated me, thinking a teacher from a modest background couldn't fight back. But I'd been raised to stand up, and Ava deserved a mother who'd battle for her. As Rachel packed up, promising the story would hit airwaves by evening, I felt a fire ignite. The Caldwells thought they'd erased me, but they'd only given me a stage. My daughter's kicks pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding me I wasn't alone. This fight was just beginning, and I was ready to show them who they'd really crossed. As I sat in the gas station, the flickering neon lights casting shadows on the walls, my mind drifted back to how I ended up here, betrayed by the man I thought I'd spend my life with. 3 years ago, I met Daniel Caldwell at a glitzy charity gala in Savannah's historic district, the kind of event I only attended because my principal roped me into volunteering. I was a 27-year-old teacher pouring my heart into my second graders, still carrying the grit of a childhood spent scraping by with my mom in a cramped apartment. Daniel, with his tailored suit and easy laugh, seemed like a dream, kind, ambitious, different from the polished crowd around him. He worked for Coastal Trust Insurance, a big name in Savannah, and talked about building a life grounded in love, not status. I fell hard believing he saw me for who I was. We married within a year, despite his family's thinly veiled disapproval. His mother, Jennifer, was Savannah royalty, running the Caldwell Community Fund with an iron grip and a smile that never reached her eyes. "Teaching is quaint," she'd say, her voice dripping with judgment, as if my work with kids was a hobby, not a calling. Barbara, Daniel's younger sister, was worse. A social media influencer who thrived on likes and subtle digs. At a supposed casual brunch, she once led me into a room full of Savannah's elite, all in designer dresses, while I stood out in my simple skirt, mortified. "Oh, I forgot to mention the dress code," she'd smirked, snapping a photo for her followers. Daniel used to brush it off, promising his family would come around. I clung to that hope, ignoring the cracks in his devotion. When I got pregnant, everything changed. Daniel's warmth faded, replaced by irritation. He started echoing Jennifer's criticisms. My job was lowly, my emotions too much. Barbara's pranks grew meaner, like when she accidentally spilled wine on my favorite dress at a family dinner, laughing as Daniel stayed silent. I told myself it was stress, that he'd come back to me once our daughter was born. But on that road trip to Tybee Island, their whispers and laughter in the car felt different, calculated. Daniel insisted I sit in the back for Jennifer's comfort, and I ignored the unease in my gut. Looking back, I see it clearly. They were planning this all along, waiting for the perfect moment to humiliate me. As I sat in the gas station, feeling my baby kick, I realized the family I'd married into didn't just dislike me. They wanted to erase me. But I wasn't the naive girl they thought I was. I'd been raised to fight for what mattered, and my daughter was worth everything. The hum of the gas station's air conditioner couldn't drown out the storm building inside me as Hank showed me his computer screen. My hands shook as I logged into Facebook, and there it was, Daniel's latest post uploaded just 30 minutes ago from the Tybee Island resort. A photo of him, Jennifer, and Barbara by the pool, cocktails raised, with the caption, "Finally free for a real family getaway." Some people don't fit the Caldwell vibe. Tybee tides, family first. Comments from their high society friends flooded in, laughing, congratulating them on ditching me. My chest tightened, not just from betrayal, but from the sheer audacity. They thought they could humiliate me and parade it for the world to see. Clara's voice snapped me back. "Channel 9's here," she said, pointing to a news van pulling into the lot. Rachel Coleman, a sharp-eyed reporter with a reputation for exposing injustice, strode in, her camera crew trailing. She took one look at my pregnant belly and the security footage Hank had queued up. "This is bigger than abandonment," she said, her voice firm. "This is about endangering a child." The footage played on a loop. Me waddling out of the restroom, Daniel's SUV speeding off, their laughter echoing through the audio. Rachel's jaw tightened. "We're airing this tonight. The Caldwells won't know what hit them." By evening, the story was everywhere. Channel 9's broadcast went viral, shared across social media with hashtags like #JusticeForZoe. Strangers posted furious comments calling out the Caldwells' cruelty. I borrowed Clara's phone to call my best friend, Deborah Bennett, a librarian who'd never trusted Daniel. "Zoe, it's bad," she said, her voice urgent. "Jennifer's charity just announced a family values fundraiser next week. The hypocrisy is unreal." I scrolled through Twitter where Coastal Trust Insurance was trending, their customers demanding answers about their star employee, Daniel. The Caldwell Community Funds page was flooded with donors pulling support, their elite world starting to crack. I felt a mix of rage and vindication, but also fear. My hospital bag, with my medical records and baby essentials, was still in Daniel's car. They didn't just leave me, they left my daughter vulnerable. As I sat in Hank and Clara's office, watching the news vans multiply outside, I realized this wasn't just my fight anymore. Strangers were rallying, sharing stories of their own betrayals, turning my pain into a movement. The Caldwells thought they'd buried me in that gas station lot, but they'd only given me a megaphone. I rubbed my belly, whispering to my daughter, "We're not alone, Ava. Not anymore." The world was watching, and I was ready to tell my truth. But as the media lights flashed brighter, I couldn't shake the nagging thought that this was only the beginning of their unraveling schemes. The gas station's fluorescent lights buzzed as I sat in Hank and Clara's office, the weight of Daniel's Facebook post sinking deeper into my chest. That poolside photo, him, Jennifer, and Barbara grinning with cocktails, captioned "Finally free for a real family getaway." Some people don't fit the Caldwell vibe. Felt like a knife twisting in my gut. The comments from their elite friends, laughing at my expense, fueled a fire I hadn't known I could feel. My hands trembled, not just from betrayal, but from the audacity of their public cruelty. Ava's gentle kicks pulled me back, reminding me this wasn't just about me anymore. Clara handed me another water, her eyes fierce. "They're gonna regret this, Zoe," she said as Hank nodded, refreshing the newsfeed on his phone. Rachel Coleman's broadcast had hit the airwaves, and the internet was exploding. "Justice for Zoe" trended on Twitter, with strangers sharing the Channel 9 clip, their outrage echoing my own. Coastal Trust Insurance, Daniel's employer, was tagged in posts demanding his firing. The Caldwell Community Funds page drowned in comments from donors pulling support, calling out Jennifer's family values hypocrisy. I scrolled through the chaos on Clara's phone, my breath catching at the sheer scale of it. Deborah texted me screenshots of local Savannah groups tearing into the Caldwells. "Their country clubs whispering about bans," she wrote. "This is big." The viral storm was dismantling their polished image, and I felt a strange mix of vindication and dread. They'd thought I'd stay silent, a teacher too meek to fight their wealth and status. But my mom had raised me to stand up, and Ava deserved a mother who wouldn't break. Rachel popped back in, her camera crew trailing. "Zoe, this is national now," she said, her voice sharp with purpose. "People are rallying. Want to add to the story?" I nodded, my voice steady despite the ache. "I want them to know this wasn't a mistake. They planned it." As the camera rolled, I described the calculated cruelty, the backseat relegation, Barbara's smirks, Daniel's coldness since my pregnancy. The footage of their laughter played again, undeniable. Rachel's eyes gleamed. "This'll air again tonight? They can't hide." By midnight, the backlash grew fiercer. Coastal Trust issued a vague statement about reviewing employee conduct, but customers weren't buying it, threatening boycotts. Jennifer's charity fundraiser set for next week was canceled after sponsors bailed. Barbara's Instagram, usually flooded with likes, was hemorrhaging followers. Her latest post mocked relentlessly. I felt Ava kick, grounding me amidst the chaos. This wasn't just about exposing them. It was about protecting her from a family that saw us as obstacles. My thoughts drifted to the early signs I'd ignored. Daniel's charm had once felt like a shield against his family's disdain, but it faded fast. At a charity dinner last month, Jennifer had toasted to legacy, her eyes skipping over me. Barbara had posted a photo of me struggling with my swollen feet, captioned, "Pregnancy struggles, am I right?" with laughing emojis. Daniel hadn't said a word. I'd told myself it was temporary, that fatherhood would bring him back. But that road trip, with their whispered plans and forced smiles, was a setup. They'd wanted me gone, humiliated, erased. Now their arrogance was their undoing. Hank switched the TV to Channel 9, where Rachel's updated segment played. A Savannah council member called the Caldwells toxic, urging accountability. My phone buzzed with messages from parents of my students, offering support, calling me brave. One wrote, "Miss Garcia, you're teaching us all to fight bullies." I hadn't realized how much my story resonated, how many others felt betrayed by those they trusted. Clara sat beside me, her hand warm on mine. "You're not just surviving, Zoe, you're changing things." I nodded, feeling the weight of it. The Caldwells thought they'd buried me in that lot, but they'd handed me a spotlight. Ava's kicks felt stronger, like she was cheering me on. As the news vans multiplied outside, I realized this fight was bigger than my pain. It was about every woman dismissed, every mother fighting for her child. The Caldwells' world of wealth and lies was cracking, and I wasn't done. Deborah texted again, "Found something on Jennifer's charity, shady donations, digging more." My heart raced. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was a reckoning. I rubbed my belly, whispering, "We're just getting started, Ava." The fire inside me burned brighter, fueled by the world's outrage and my daughter's steady heartbeat. The Caldwells had lit the match, but I was the one holding the torch now. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen as I sat in the gas station, the buzz of news vans outside amplifying my racing heart. My breath caught, and Clara's nurse instincts kicked in. "Zoe, honey, are you okay?" she asked, her hand steadying my shoulder. Another pang made me wince. "It's probably just Braxton Hicks," I said, trying to convince myself, but the fear in my voice betrayed me. Ava was so close to arriving and I was stranded. No phone, no hospital bag, no plan. Hank was already dialing 911, his voice firm. "Better safe than sorry. Hospital's 40 minutes away." Rachel Coleman, the Channel 9 reporter, made a snap decision. "We're taking you to Savannah Memorial now," she said, her crew helping me into the news van. As we sped through Georgia's back roads, another contraction hit, stronger this time. Rachel gripped my hand, her voice calm. "You're going to be fine, Zoe, and we'll make sure everyone knows what the Caldwells did." I nodded, clutching her hand, my mind torn between fear for Ava and fury at Daniel. How could he risk our daughter's life for a cruel stunt? At the hospital, the maternity ward was a whirlwind. Doctors confirmed it was false labor, likely triggered by stress, but insisted I stay overnight. "You've been through a lot," the nurse said, adjusting my IV. "Your baby's strong, but you need rest." Rest felt impossible as the TV blared Channel 9's broadcast, looping the gas station footage with Daniel's mocking, "Take a nice walk." My phone, retrieved by Deborah after a resort staffer saw the news, buzzed with notifications. Deborah burst in, her face flushed. "Turn to Channel 9 now." There was Jennifer, in designer resort wear, spinning lies to a reporter. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, her voice silky. "Zoe's been emotional. Pregnancy hormones, you know. We respected her need for space." The reporter fired back. "Security footage shows you laughing as you left a pregnant woman in 95-degree heat. How do you explain that?" Jennifer's smile faltered as the footage played again, undeniable. I felt a surge of power, knowing their lies were unraveling. Ava kicked, grounding me. This wasn't just about exposing them, it was about protecting her from a family that saw us as pawns. Deborah handed me her tablet, her eyes blazing. "Zoe, look at this." Leaked emails from the Caldwell Community Fund had hit the internet, shared by an anonymous whistleblower. My heart sank as I read them. Jennifer called me a liability and urged Daniel to cut ties before Ava's birth. Barbara's text was worse. "Once the baby's here, we'll prove she's unfit. Your job and Mom's connections will seal it." They weren't just humiliating me, they were plotting to take my daughter. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a fire igniting inside me. They'd underestimated the girl raised by a single mom who'd fought for everything. The hospital room buzzed with energy as media trucks parked outside. Rachel returned, her expression grim. "This changes everything, Zoe. It's a calculated plan." I nodded, my voice steady despite the ache. "I want to tell the world. They need to know what they planned for Ava." As I spoke to Rachel's camera, I described the emails, the custody scheme, the betrayal that went beyond abandonment. My students' parents sent messages. "Miss Garcia, you're showing us how to stand tall." Strangers on Twitter shared their own stories, tagging me as their inspiration. The Caldwells thought they could silence me, but their arrogance amplified my voice. Ava's kicks felt like a promise, urging me to keep fighting. The hospital TV flickered with updates. Coastal Trust had suspended Daniel, and the internet was erupting. I rubbed my belly, whispering, "We're not alone, baby girl." The Caldwells had laid a trap, but I was rewriting the story, and the world was listening. The hospital room's fluorescent lights buzzed as I gripped Deborah's tablet, the leaked emails from the Caldwell Community Fund burning into my vision. Jennifer's words, "liability, poor fit for the Caldwell legacy," and Barbara's chilling text about proving me unfit for Ava twisted my stomach. I felt Ava kick, a steady pulse against my hand, grounding me as the truth sank in. They hadn't just wanted to humiliate me, they'd planned to steal my daughter. Deborah's voice trembled with rage. "This is evil, Zoe. They thought they could play you like a pawn." Rachel Coleman, back with her camera crew, nodded grimly. "This isn't just abandonment. It's a calculated scheme." She showed me Coastal Trust's latest statement. Daniel was suspended pending an investigation into misuse of company resources. My heart raced, not from fear, but from a fire I hadn't known I could summon. They'd underestimated me, a teacher raised by a single mom who'd fought for everything, and now their own greed was unraveling them. Jessica Lane, Daniel's former assistant, slipped into the room, clutching a thick folder. Her hands shook, her voice a whisper. "Zoe, I couldn't stay silent anymore." She spread documents across my hospital bed. Insurance policies, trust fund papers, financial statements. The Caldwells had taken out a massive life insurance policy on me, tied to my pregnancy without my knowledge. "The gas station wasn't just cruelty," Jessica said, her eyes wide with fear. "They wanted to push you into a crisis, maybe early labor, to claim you were unstable. It was for the money." My breath caught, Ava's kicks anchoring me as my mind reeled. Daniel had used his Coastal Trust email to research custody lawyers specializing in maternal instability, documenting my every tear during pregnancy to build a case against me. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a cold, calculated fraud. Deborah slammed her fist on the chair. "This is attempted fraud. We need the FBI." Rachel agreed, her voice sharp. "We'll handle this carefully, Zoe. The Caldwells still have connections, but this evidence changes everything." Jessica nodded, revealing she'd already sent the documents to federal agents now raiding the Caldwells' Tybee Island motel. The hospital TV flickered with live footage. Jennifer in handcuffs, her designer sunglasses askew, Daniel's face pale as he was led away. Barbara trailed behind, her influencer poise shattered. I felt a strange mix of grief and power. Grief for the love I'd thought I had, power from knowing I wasn't alone. My phone buzzed with messages from strangers, co-workers, even parents of my students, all rallying behind me. One wrote, "Miss Garcia, you're teaching us courage." As I spoke to Rachel's camera, my voice cracked but held strong. They didn't just leave me at that gas station. They planned to take my daughter, to paint me as unfit because I'm a teacher, not a socialite. But Ava deserves a mother who fights, and I'm fighting for her. The internet erupted, with women sharing stories of betrayal, tagging me as their inspiration. Coastal Trust's stock plummeted as customers boycotted, and Savannah's elite shunned the Caldwells, canceling their charity events. My classroom felt far away, but I pictured my students, how I'd teach them to stand up to bullies. Ava's kicks were a reminder. This was her future I was securing. A new text from Deborah popped up. "Zoe, the council's pushing a law to protect pregnant women from abandonment. They're calling it the Garcia Protection Act." My heart swelled. My pain was sparking change, not just for me but for others. The Caldwells thought they'd buried me, but their own paper trail had become their cage. I rubbed my belly, whispering, "We did it, Ava." The hospital room felt like a command center. the media trucks outside a testament to the movement growing from my story. Jessica sat quietly, her courage a lifeline. "I saved dash cam footage from Daniel's company car," she said. "They planned this for weeks." The evidence was undeniable, and as the FBI dug deeper, I knew the Caldwell's downfall was just beginning. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a force, rewriting our future with every truth exposed. The hospital room's TV glowed with images of the Caldwell's world collapsing, and I couldn't tear my eyes away. Coastal Trust Insurance had fired Daniel that morning, their CEO announcing it in a press conference looping on every channel. "We cannot condone behavior that endangers a pregnant woman or abuses company resources," he said, his face stern. An audit had uncovered Daniel's history of workplace harassment. Female colleagues, silenced until my story broke, now shared tales of his intimidation. I felt a pang of guilt for those women, but pride too, that my fight had opened their voices. Savannah's elite turned on the Caldwells like a tide. The Tybee Island resort, where they'd lounged poolside, evicted them after guests complained about sharing space with those people from the news. Social media showed Jennifer, sunglasses perched, arguing with staff as they were escorted out. The Caldwell Community Fund was hemorrhaging donors. Banks and law firms cut ties, unwilling to back their family values sham. Barbara's influencer account, once thriving, was a ghost town, her followers dropping by thousands. Deborah sat cross-legged on the hospital chair, refreshing her phone. "Zoe, look at this," she said, showing a tweet from a Savannah council member. "The Caldwell name is toxic now. Their charity's done." I thought of Jennifer's smug gala smiles, Barbara's cruel pranks, Daniel's cold indifference. They'd built their empire on image, but one truth had torn it down. I rubbed my belly, feeling Ava's steady kicks, and whispered, "We're free, baby girl." The hospital staff, sneaking in with encouraging smiles, brought me a tray of fruit. One nurse whispering, "You're a hero, Zoe." Rachel Coleman stopped by with more news. The country club banned the Caldwells, and Coastal Trust is cooperating with a state investigation into Daniel's conduct. My phone buzzed with a message from Jessica, Daniel's assistant. "I saved dash cam footage from his company car. They planned this for weeks. I'm done staying quiet." My heart raced. This was evidence of something darker, a deliberate plot laid bare. The media trucks outside multiplied, their lights cutting through the dusk. I felt lighter, like I could breathe again. Ava and I weren't just surviving, we were rewriting our future. The world's support poured in. Parents of my students sent messages, one writing, "Miss Garcia, you're teaching us all to stand tall." Strangers on Twitter shared their own betrayals, calling me their inspiration. I pictured my classroom, where I'd teach my kids about facing bullies, knowing Ava would grow up with that strength. Deborah scrolled her tablet, her eyes wide. "Zoe, Jennifer's charity posted a tearful video claiming they were protecting Ava from your erratic behavior. It's backfiring. Nobody's buying it." I laughed, a sound I barely recognized. Their lies were crumbling under the weight of truth. As I lay there, Ava's kicks felt like a promise of strength. The Caldwells had thought they were untouchable, but their cruelty had built the cage now closing around them. I remembered the early days, Daniel's promises of love, how I'd ignored Jennifer's jabs about my quaint job. Now their hypocrisy was exposed. Jennifer's family values fundraisers, Barbara's curated perfection, Daniel's polished charm, all shattered. My phone buzzed again. A local women's group wanted me to speak, to share how I'd turned pain into power. I wasn't ready yet, but the idea sparked something. This fight wasn't just mine. It was for every woman dismissed, every mother protecting her child. The hospital room felt like a beacon, the media frenzy outside a testament to the movement my story had ignited. I thought of my mom, working double shifts to raise me, teaching me to stand up. Ava deserved that same grit, and I'd give it to her. As Deborah squeezed my hand, saying, "They thought they'd break you, Zoe, but you're breaking their world," I felt a fire burn brighter. The Caldwells had gambled on my silence, but their arrogance had amplified my voice. Ava's kicks pulsed like a heartbeat, urging me forward. The world was watching, and I was ready to show them what a teacher from Savannah could do when she fought for her daughter. The hospital room felt like a sanctuary as I held my daughter, Ava, her tiny fingers curling around mine, her soft breaths a quiet victory against the chaos of the past week. She'd arrived 2 weeks early, a perfect 7-pound bundle born in the same Savannah hospital that had become my battleground. The TV on the wall played non-stop coverage of the Caldwell's collapse. Federal investigators had uncovered a web of insurance fraud tied to the Caldwell Community Fund, with my abandonment as the tip of the iceberg. Daniel, Jennifer, and Barbara faced charges, their polished facades stripped away as they were led off in handcuffs. The foundation's assets were frozen, its events canceled, its legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. Coastal Trust Insurance, desperate to salvage its reputation, established a fund for victims of domestic manipulation, seeded with Daniel's canceled bonus. They offered me a consulting role to shape their family protection initiatives. I accepted, not for the money, but to ensure no one else felt the isolation I had. Back in my classroom, parents greeted me with hugs, leaving a framed article on my desk. Gas station case sparks Garcia Protection Act. The new Georgia law made abandoning a pregnant woman in dangerous conditions a felony, a testament to the change my pain had sparked. Jennifer's 5-year sentence for fraud and Daniel and Barbara's similar fates felt like justice, not revenge. My victory was in Ava's peaceful breathing, in the love surrounding us. Deborah, now Ava's godmother, helped me settle into a new apartment, far from the Caldwells' world of status and lies. Hank and Clara, who sent a tiny knit blanket for Ava, visited often, their gas station now a local landmark for kindness. Jessica, the whistleblower, became a friend, her courage a reminder that truth could shift tides. My classroom remained my sanctuary, where I taught my kids about standing up to bullies, knowing Ava would grow up with that strength. Speaking invitations poured in, women's groups, ethics panels, law enforcement training, but my heart stayed with my students and daughter. As I looked at Ava, sleeping soundly, I thought of the Caldwell's downfall. They'd tried to break me, but I'd built something better from the ashes, a life rooted in love, not status. My story had given voice to others, from Daniel's harassed colleagues to strangers sharing their betrayals online. Sometimes the worst moments forge the greatest strength, and I wanted Ava to know her mom didn't just survive, she changed the world for her. The hospital window framed a quiet dawn, the media trucks gone, leaving a stillness that felt like a deep breath after a storm. I cradled Ava, her warmth against my chest a reminder of what mattered. The world outside had roared with my story, but here, in this moment, it softened to a whisper. My mom's lessons, Hank and Clara's kindness, Deborah's loyalty, Jessica's bravery, they'd carried me through. I traced Ava's tiny fingers, thinking of the parents who'd called me a hero, the women who'd found courage in my fight. The Caldwell's empire had crumbled, but mine was just beginning, built on love and truth. I whispered to Ava, my voice barely audible, "We're home, baby girl." The fight was over, but the love we'd sparked would carry on, quiet and strong, like a heartbeat echoing in a classroom where resilience always wins. As I sit in my new apartment, Ava sleeping in her crib, the world feels softer, the edges of my pain smoothed by time and love. The Caldwell's downfall, Daniel's firing, Jennifer's fraud conviction, Barbara's silenced influence, fades like a distant storm, their names now a whisper in Savannah's streets. I think of the gas station where Hank and Clara's kindness lit the spark, and the hospital where Ava's first cry marked my rebirth. My classroom hums with life again, my second graders' laughter a reminder of why I teach, to show them they can stand tall, just as I did. The Garcia Protection Act, born from my story, protects others, its weight a quiet triumph. Deborah, now family, brings books for Ava, while Jessica's visits remind me truth can break chains. Coastal Trust's fund, shaped by my voice, helps women rebuild, and every letter from a stranger, every shared story, feels like a thread weaving us together. I walk to Ava's crib, her steady breaths a melody of peace. The betrayal that once burned now fuels my purpose, to raise a daughter who knows her worth, to teach children resilience, to live a life unbowed by status or lies. My mom's strength flows through me, her lessons alive in Ava's future. As moonlight spills through the window, I lean close, whispering, "We made it, baby girl." The world may forget the Caldwells, but it will remember us, not for the pain we endured, but for the love we built, a quiet, unbreakable force that will carry on.